You know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this?
Come on, then. I'll bite your legs off.
I can take it.
Great power comes great responsibility. We have a fault. Get to the chopper! And the power. The flesh wound. I am the father.
Wild, weird, wonderful. The stuff for which movies were made. Adventure to make you wonder if it's true, while your eyes convince you that it is. Truly, the thrill of thrills. Don't miss it this time.
And we are back for the 16th episode of the Monster Movie Stompdown. And of course, you got Sludge here, my co-host sitting across from me.
Is Mark.
And our buddy from Corpus Christi, Texas.
Ruben here.
We are all together. We are in the double episode month starting now. We'll be doing 2 Monster Movie Stompdowns each month, building up to Godzilla vs. Kong in March 2020. So we're going to do a Godzilla film and a Kong film every month up until we get to March. In the month prior, February, we will actually be going through, March's episode, I'm sorry. We'll be going through and doing the entire MonsterVerse trilogy at this point, going into Godzilla vs. Kong. So that'll be a really cool episode. So this episode, we're starting with the original Kong, 1933 King Kong. So I'm super stoked about this film. I actually wanted to almost watched it twice. I started it Sunday night to watch, prepping for this episode, and then watched it last night. So I watched it 1.5 times, actually, technically, or 1 3/4, because the Sunday night I got all the way up to them getting them on the boat to go to New York. So I missed, 20 minutes left of the film. But I love this film. Let's give it a quick breakdown real quick. For those who have not seen this film, which I'm going to go ahead and assume of all the movies we've done, I'm just going to assume everyone listening has seen this movie. But just in case you're the odd man out, this is about a giant gorilla named King Kong. Came out in 1933. So pretty much, you've got a you've got a movie producer or maker called Carl Denham, who's kind of on the outs, trying to make his last film. Gets a map from like a Danish ship captain or something, and it's a place called Skull Island. So he finds a female lead cast in Fay Ray, whose character's name's Anne in the movie, and they get on board this ship, and they've got a whole film crew and the ship's crew. They go looking for Skull Island. They get to Skull Island. There's a race of people that live there, natives, and they worship this massive gorilla god named King Kong, who they give female sacrifices to. And, of course, they see Fay Ray's character, Anne Darrow, who is blonde from New York, and they've never seen them ever. Of course, now the natives in this movie are all black, African American actors, which this movie actually had some racist allegations towards it back in later on, some releases, but it's whatever. It's pointless. I don't even understand why they went into that. Yeah. But so they've never, they're African American people, and they've never seen a white woman with blonde hair. And so they're like, she's got to be it. She's the one we got to get to Kong. So they kidnap her, tie her up, and Kong gets her. And then the rest of the movie pursues. The crew, Carl, and then you've got Carl Denham, and then the other main character, John Driscoll, lead the rescue to try and save Anne from Kong. They go across all of Skull Island, fight, come across all kinds of awesome, not monsters, but dinosaurs. There's a T-Rex, a Brontosaurus, there's Pteranodons, and all these cool things that they get to see, and that tries to eat them throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
That pretty much everybody dies as far as the initial rescue crew, other than Carl and John. And they end up rescuing Anne. Kong follows him back to the village. They use gas bombs on Kong and take him back to New York to make some money because they lost the chance to film anything because just chaos ensued. Of course, they get Kong to New York, and Kong breaks free, grabs Anne again, since she's the damsel in distress for this movie, and tears through New York. One of the best parts we'll talk about is the subway car scene. I thought it was great, but he tears through New York. He ends up climbing the top of the Empire State Building, and is then attacked by planes, gets shot, falls, dies. Beauty killed the beast, So great film. I didn't really want to go into a real detailed recap because you've seen this movie, but just to get it out there. The movie's absolutely great movie. Let's give a little bit of a rundown. Well, actually, before we give a rundown of the movie, because there's a lot of really cool information about this film, because this film is what's historic. It was one of the first films in the Criterion Collection. It's one of the greatest films revered worldwide since it came out. It completely changed movie history in 1933, and most critics and film historians consider this the first actual blockbuster in film history. So, there's a lot to this movie that I really want to dig into. But real quick, when did you guys first see it, or do you remember first seeing it?
Wow, I was young. It was back in those Saturday afternoon, matinees, type deal. So I was less than 10.
Less than 10.
Yeah.
Ruben, what about you?
It was about second grade, and it was the morning movie. There was a movie like at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I just remember around second or third grade maybe. I just remember getting, at that time, we were kids. We got up pretty early, but I remember wanting to make sure I was ready for that when it came on TV. So the first time I saw it was a summer weekday morning. Believe it or not, it wasn't even a weekend.
Oh, nice. I saw this after Godzilla. This one I didn't see. Do you guys remember TNT's Monster Vision?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I remember seeing the commercial. The original commercial for Monster Vision had the awesome a shot of the awesome scene where he breaks through the gate doors there on the island. And I was like, what is this? And then they finally ended up playing King Kong on Monster Vision. And I remember watching it. I think I was still in Florida. So, it was probably around third grade-ish, that time frame, maybe fourth grade, because that was that transition from Florida. So it was right in there. Yeah. So third, fourth grade. So not long after what, Ruben, you would have seen it. So so we're all young when we saw this movie. And I think
mine was in the 70s. Yours is probably closer to early 80s than
mine
would 80s, right?
Mine would have been early 90s.
Early 90s.
Early night. Wow,
90s.
not even there. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Because I remember Monster Vision. I just couldn't remember. So that would have been, you're right, early 90s was when there was Monster Vision.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Mine would have been late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, and me early. Would be mid 70.
So Mark definitely saw it before all of us.
Oh yeah.
On this end.
70. Yeah.
So
it's just
and it's such a good movie. So this movie was put out by RKO Pictures. Now at the time, RKO was actually facing bankruptcy, and they put all they had left into Kong. Now this movie, the story was written by Marion C. Cooper, who Marion C. Cooper also directed the film, produced the film. This was his baby, Marion C. Cooper, and he was their top movie guy at the time, and they were on the outs. They just couldn't keep up with Universal or some of those other companies at the time. So they sunk everything they had into King Kong, and they went all out the best they could. They went and got a hold of what was it? What was her name? It was like one of the producers, Ernest Shosdak, is the producer, and he co-directed this. He actually had done other films, and Marion focused a lot on the Kong scenes, while Ernest did a lot of the other scenes with the actual actors. But it was Ernest's wife, I believe. She was a big screenwriter at the time, and so they went straight to her, wanted her to work on the screenplay. So she was like the best choice there was. Of course, Marion got Ernest because Ernest was one of the best choices there was. Then they went and got Willis O'Brien because they were, how you going to do a big, ape at the time. And Willis had previously worked on 1925's The Lost World. And so they're like, he's the best. He was the best special effects guru there was because stop motion just came out. And when 1925's Lost World came out, people's reaction was, these are real life dinosaurs. And so they're like, we got to have Willis O'Brien. So they bring Willis O'Brien to do special effects, and then a great cast. I mean, you've got Fay Wray as Ann Darrow. This was her first big movie, and she's absolutely great in the movie. But then you've got big actors at the time, Robert Armstrong and Bruce Cabot. Robert Armstrong plays Carl Denham, and then Bruce Cabot plays John Driscoll, and the two main characters. So you got the strong. They went all out. They got the biggest actors they could afford. Yeah. They got the biggest writers they could afford, best special effects they could afford, because this movie was going to be their last, or keep them going for many years to come. And thankfully, it kept them going because this was a critical success. No one had ever seen anything like this. I mean, the reception for this movie was absolutely insane at the box office. This was actually. When it came out, that had an opening weekend estimated of like $90,000 in 1933. Okay, keep in mind 1933. In worldwide, the film's first run made a profit of $650,000 in 1933. The film was a box office success because it made almost $2 million total worldwide from rentals. Renting out to the different theaters. Right. So domestically, you're looking at 90,000 opening weekend, 650,000 in its run here in America, almost 2 million worldwide. This is the first movie to gross $1 million. And numbers like that had never been seen before. So I mean, the reception of this was outstanding, to the point that back then you didn't have home video. We didn't have home video until the 60s. That they actually had to do a re-release in 1950. I think it was 1952 they did re-release. And even the re-release did millions of dollars. And then they so I mean, it's massive. No one had ever seen anything like it. And of course, this movie is on tons of lists for great, top 100 greatest films of all time. It's on, it's in the American Film Institute, it's in the National Film Registry, it's in the Library of Congress. I mean, this movie was huge for what it did, because no one had ever seen anything like this ever. And so it ended up saving RKO Pictures. Now, as we get into the things we do like or didn't like, of course, King Kong ended up becoming a staple for pop culture and, just films in general. He wasn't the first giant monster. I think the first giant monster was in a movie called Golem, maybe. I think that's what it was. It was a silent film. Of course, you saw the dinosaurs in The Lost World prior to this. There's that big ice monster in A Trip to the Moon. So he's not the first giant monster on film, but he was the most notable. I mean, he was the first one that really made people go, whoa, I mean, the reaction to seeing him in the special effects was just phenomenal, to the point that they, almost immediately rushed into a sequel, Son of Kong, which we're not going to do a full episode on because, as we've talked, who cares about Son of Kong? But we'll talk about it real quick. I mean, with Kong's reception and how well it did and made so much money that they did, RKO rushed into production the same year, released it the same year, 1933, released Son of Kong. Now, Son of Kong saw Carl Denham, who was again played by Robert Armstrong, to come back to the island because after the chaos in New York, people are suing them. He's out of money. He's bankrupt pretty much. He's trying to find, he's running away, trying to find a way to save himself pretty much and make some money. So he goes back to Skull Island, and that's where he finds Kong's white-haired son, who's like half his size. And I don't like this movie whatsoever, and
I'm not laughing at you. I'm
Dude,
laughing with you, man.
it was terrible. They tried to time. I mean, you didn't have the same crew, So Willis O'Brien didn't come back and do the special effects. You had some offshoot guys that worked part time with Willis. The graphics just were nowhere near as good as Kong. And then of course you only had Robert Armstrong coming back, and then you had the captain Englehorn, that actor Frank Richer, right? Reicher. They were the only two. No, I'm sorry, they're not the only two returning characters. I did forget. The cook is in it. The Chinese cook from the first movie, he comes back.
Yeah.
Victor Wong, it was his name. He's in this one. So I mean, you had them return, but then the movie was done solely by Ernest Shostak, so Marion Cooper really didn't have anything to do with this one. And it was rushed. The whole movie was rushed. Special effects looked rushed. Story was rushed. Helen Mack played, I can't even remember her name, the female lead in the movie. Just wasn't memorable. He fought a lot more. There was a lot more dinosaurs. There was like a Styracosaurus. There was a massive cave bear. And Brontosaurus or Elasmosaurus, something like that. But so, I mean, they just tried to up the ante and cash crop in on Kong, and it did not do good. Where Kong made millions, Son of Kong definitely did not. Kong made millions in the 30s. Son of Kong made a total profit of $133,000. I mean, it tanked. Did not do good. So, it couldn't match up to his dad, I guess. I mean, the original Kong was where it's at.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Okay. Remember whose show you're on. But I mean, so Kong goes on. I mean, from this one, and we'll get into the things we liked and didn't like here in just a moment. But I mean, so Kong became. I mean, he's huge. He's been in TV commercials, cartoon series. Hanna-Barbera did a Kong cartoon series back in the day. He ended up fighting Godzilla on film in 1962. Had his own Japanese movie, King Kong Escapes. He's had a remake in the 70s by Dino De Laurentiis, which actually had Rick Baker, the special effects designer.
Yeah.
He played Kong in that movie, actually. He was in the suit. But so they had that, the King Kong Lives sequel, the Peter Jackson movie, Kong Skull Island now. So, I mean, Kong's been around. He's had his own comic books, video games. Actually, there was a Nintendo game that never got brought stateside, but it was called King Kong Megaton Punch, and it was kind of based off of the Hanna-Barbera cartoon series. And so you played Kong, and you're on that island that they were on or whatever, and you're trying to save the Johnny Quest-esque type family he was with, which was actually a pretty fun game. I managed to get a copy of a ROM and play it, and it was really cool. But so, I mean, he's huge. He's not as big as Godzilla as far as pop culture status by any means, but he's the only other most notably known giant monster movie or giant monster in film ever. I mean, Japan has Godzilla, we have Kong. And even though Kong's only got 7 films compared to Godzilla's 35, he's almost equally as big and iconic as Godzilla because he really revolutionized and changed the film industry in 1933. I mean, completely.
And don't you think that, I mean, the money that they made off, we're in the middle of the Depression.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And then all these people pour out. And I think it was possibly a morale booster for the country, for the people. At the same time, this thing was coming out. I mean, it's remarkable the amount of money that it made, just based on the time, the economy, and everything that's going on at the time when it's released.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
because they were right in the middle of the Depression, and bam. I mean, I'd hate to have been Universal at the time, because what would Universal be thinking? Like, these dudes are going under, we're losing competition. We're coming out with Frankenstein and the Wolfman, which was later, but like these blockbuster hits, and then Kong just destroys it all. Right. It's like, in the middle of the Depression, it's like, oh, dude, this is crazy.
You're right, and I mean, it sold out Radio City Music Hall, 6,200 seats.
Yeah,
and then the one across the street, the RKO Roxy, 3,700 seats, all sold out for the first 4 days. The first 4 days of the opening.
Yep.
And that was even before the worldwide. So, and Mark brings up a good point. That was in the Depression. Tickets were only, for us at 35 to 75 cents, but
Yeah, that's right.
people
Yeah.
paid that. Yeah. People
So, I mean,
paid that.
Making that kind of money, that's pretty good. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean,
Something
at
to talk
35 cents to 75 cents a ticket, too. Think about that. Middle Depression, 35 cents to 75 cents a ticket, and it grosses in that first 4 days almost $90,000.
That's a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a lot of people.
Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, y'all didn't get that many people in the seats. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, huge. I mean, this thing was huge, and it was actually re-released. I'm sorry, I just found a list because I wanted to know because I was going to make sure I was right in the 1952. But it was re-released in 1952, but it was actually re-released in 1938, 1942, 1946, 1952, and again in 1956. What movie has been re-released that many times?
And did great.
When did I know?
Every time it was released.
And just did
great.
Phenomenal.
Every time it was released. Yeah.
I mean, just and it was there was so many big landmarks for this film because not only for the money it made. I mean, it really is the first block. I mean, it literally was the first blockbuster ever. But I mean, one of the other things too that a lot of people may not think about when they go back and look at Kong is a guy named Max Steiner. Max Steiner composed this film. This was the first full orchestra composure for any film at the time. You never had that. I mean, he had a full orchestra. How was it, like a 40, 50 piece orchestra that did the score? It had never happened. So this was the first movie to have a full soundtrack ever.
And they had that in the beginning. They had that full. What is it? 5 almost.
That overture.
The overture. Yeah.
Overture. Yeah. The overture.
Which I mean, like, so let's be honest here. Did you guys sit through the whole overture? Or did you guys skip through it? I
watched it.
Okay, I did too. I totally sat through the whole thing. I was like, nope, I want the full feel, and because I knew it was several minutes long, but I was just kind of imagining. It's like, okay, so 1933, this is on the screen. This is people getting their popcorn, getting their drinks. This is not like theaters today where we've got 300 seats. This is like Ruben was just saying, 3,000, 4,000 seats filling.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean,
and it's letting you know it's getting ready to start.
Oh yeah,
get your popcorn now and get your seat.
So good. And then another thing too with this, when it comes to the soundtrack, now I don't know the guy's name. His name was Murray, start with an M. But the guy who did the special effects or the sound effects for this film. He was like really groundbreaking for what he did because he really was the first guy to experiment with sound on film. Because do you guys know what Kong's roar was made from?
I do not.
Kong's roar. You know what it is, Ruben?
Yeah, lion and a tiger roar backwards.
Yeah, well, the lions roar normally, but then Mel Murray, whatever his name is, then he took a tiger's roar and reversed it and then put them together. So you had a normal lion and a reverse tiger, and that's where Kong's voice came from. Roars came from.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and so nothing like that's ever been done. So there were so many things that you're looking at special effects that from Willis O'Brien that had never been accomplished at the time. You're looking at soundtracks from Max Steiner that had never been done at the time and never been heard before. Then Mel Murray, whatever his name is, who did the sound design, is doing things that no one's ever heard of or tried before. It was just groundbreaking on all levels. Then you got the ticket sales, and it's just like, pfft. I mean, there's it could be very much argued that this could be, if not definitely one of the greatest films of all time. When you put it into the aspect of 1933, Great Depression, millions of dollars, groundbreaking on every single level of the movie. Nothing had been seen. Nothing had been even close to done like this before. So.
Liver guy.
Let's not forget this influenced Japan in their creation of Godzilla. Toho.
Oh, that's true.
The creation of Godzilla.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you read everything about it, and one of the things they were influenced by King Kong.
Well, because it was this and The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Are the two films that inspired Godzilla as far as being made as a film. But I mean, not even just before. I mean, not even Godzilla. There was actually 2 Japanese Kong ripoff films. That one was called Kong from Edo. Now they've been lost in time, and there's a few stills, like promo stills, available, but the films are gone. I mean, they've been gone to fire or something like that. But they made 2 King Kong films in Japan way before Godzilla came out. And the most notable one, again, being Kong from Edo. Now, Kong from Edo, the suit was actually, the guy who made the suit is this, I can't think of his name right now, and I should know it off the top of my head, being a Godzilla fan, is the same guy that helped Aiji build the Godzilla suit. So this guy who built Godzilla built the Japanese Kong in the 30s. So that was pretty. So I mean, yeah, it definitely inspired Japanese film, and Godzilla itself. Because you look at it, because when you go to Godzilla, that's what Aiji wanted to do, was the stop motion animation, like Willis had done. But of course now they couldn't financially afford it, which is why he created the man in the suit genre for this. So it was. It inspired a lot, and of course, to me, this movie, above Godzilla and most other things, inspired to me what's probably the greatest special effects artist of all time. If there was no King Kong, there would be no Ray Harryhausen.
Wow.
Exactly.
The whole reason Ray started was because of Willis's work in King Kong inspired him. And if you didn't have Ray Harryhausen, we would not be where we are special effects wise today.
Oh.
His film, pick any of his movies, even if it's a bad movie that's not even any good, which I don't even really know exists. Yeah. If you could really, like, It Came From Beneath the Sea, the 6-tentacled octopus, not the best movie, but the special effects were absolutely amazing, which makes it so good. He really took Willis's effects and made them better. I couldn't help it last night, because I'm a huge Ray Harryhausen fan. I have everything he's ever done, including Earth versus the Flying Saucers, which doesn't really have much stop motion other than just the discs. But when you look at things like, when you look at, I was sitting there watching Kong and he's fighting, and even the Stegosaurus, I caught myself thinking about this when they shoot the Stegosaurus, when the T-Rex dies, anytime you see Kong, they're great on film. But I kept going back going, man, where was Ray at the time? Oh yeah, he hadn't started. Because when you go back and watch Ray's films, Ray really, where Willis started stop motion, Ray defined it and made it what it was. He was so much better than Willis was, honestly, that it's just mind blowing. I think of the scene in 20 Million Miles to Earth when the Ymir is on the table in that big factory when they finally catch it, and he's laying there knocked out, but he's breathing. And you see him breathing, like even when they're moving, like he put so much character into his creations that to him, and even say they're actors. And they would breathe, they would cry, it's like, and you're talking about clay models, and he was able to do this stuff. Yeah. So it's
in the Sinbad movies he did, and those are some of my favorites.
Oh man, yeah. Seventh and
Sinbad
Golden
movies, the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and oh man,
dude, they're both phenomenal. I put that on the other day. No, I put on.
You can just watch them over and over. And over and over.
So good.
Yeah.
I put on the seventh. Let me make sure I get them right. Seventh's the one with the Cyclops, right? And then Golden is the one with the Centaur.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Right.
So I put on the Seventh Voyage, and it's of course that opening sequence, and you got the Cyclops, and Gavin was like, "What is that?" I'm like, "This is where it starts, son. Right here's the first."
Yeah.
Sit down and let me show you.
And Jason and the Argonauts, that skeleton fight.
Oh, dude.
That was so
good.
I can't even.
Good.
I can't even describe it. Because I remember seeing that as a kid, and I'm like, "What is this?" Like, and that was it.
Oh
and,
yeah.
And even Clash of the Titans.
Oh
man, he was still doing good work.
Yeah, he did phenomenal in it.
Oh yeah.
And you even go back and look at Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, man. Of course, the movie that inspired that movie, if I'm not mistaken, ratio wise, is the highest. Should be, in my opinion, ticket to as far as film production cost to profit, should be the highest grossing film of all time. Like it is. I'll pull it up here, but because we got Avengers, which is the highest grossing film of all time because it's broke $2 billion. Blah blah blah, whatever. Still a great movie. I love it. But when you go back to the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, I'll pull it up real quick. It had a $250,000 budget, is what it ended up having. But it made. I'm gonna pull it up real quick. You guys just bear with me here. it was somewhere in the lines of $5 million is what it did at the box office. Okay, $250,000 budget, $5 million. So yeah, it was $5 million. It grossed more. It was $2.25 million in North America alone on a production budget of $200,000. So if you add another $50,000 for marketing, so let's say $250,000, earned $2.25 million in America, over $5 million worldwide. That's huge.
Yes.
Huge
Yes.
as far as profits. So, anyways, but back to Kong, because Ray Harryhausen, we could do an entire episode on Ray Harryhausen, man. Dude, I mean,
exactly.
He is sadly missed. So Kong it was huge, man. Did everything, and it's going to be hard for me. And who started last time as far as the dislikes?
Oh, I don't know.
It was me last time,
Yeah,
so
last
then
time?
you guys can start.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll start, and then Mark, you go, and then Ruben, you can go for what are likes.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to find dislikes, but I have one major dislike in this movie, only one. But as far as what I liked, everything. I mean, I love this movie. I love the setting in New York at the beginning because there's no day scenes. That's
right.
Other than the very end, which I thought was extremely brave, because if you go back and look at Lost World, when you see any day scenes, there's a lot of overshadowing. So there's a lot of like foliage covering the dinosaurs, or the dinosaurs are off in the distance, like when they get knocked off that cliff, and it's all shadow. That they did a lot to hide the special effects in the Lost World. But when you get like the brontosaurus running through London, at night, it looked great. I thought it was really cool on this one because they kind of did a little bit of the same thing. When you look at when the brontosaurus comes out of the water in this one, it's foggy and it's attacking everybody. So you got that high knit when Kong and the T-Rex, which is probably maybe the best part of the movie. It's just absolutely when he breaks that thing's jaws. It's like,
oh yeah.
Gavin was watching it, came in when I was watching it, and he was like, "Is that Godzilla?" I'm like, "No, he couldn't do that to Godzilla. Sorry, no, this is just a T-Rex." Even then, you've got
that was your shot to say, yeah, that's the Sony Godzilla.
Yeah, I should have said that's Zilla is who that is. Dang it, I missed that. But even then, so you've got Anne, Darrow or Fay Ray on the tree prop in the front shot. You've got the foliage, which is the second ground, and then you've got the stop motion, which is in the background because they did a lot of layering. So you've got the foliage and stuff kind of covering it. And it was kind of daytime, but everything's still, covered a little bit to an extent. One of my favorite scenes was definitely the Empire State Building scene because they didn't do any of that like they did previously in this film or The Lost World. They went all out, full bright, full day with the airplanes, and it was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
This movie from start to finish, I love the visuals, I love the tone and the setting of everything. The sets of Skull Island alone were amazing. Again, 1933. If I saw those sets in a 70s film, I'd still think they're amazing, the special effects were above and beyond anything. Even today, I absolutely love the effects that Willis Bryan captured in this film. I loved the characters. There's not a character in this movie I didn't really like. Even down to Victor Wong's, Chinese cook character. I thought he was great. I love when he finds the beads. And he's like, everybody on deck, everybody on deck. He starts freaking out, everybody on deck. I'm like, I can see looking back where later on, I couldn't see it in the 80s or 90s. This had to happen like early 2000s about the whole racial allegations or stuff. I could see where they get that from when it comes to like him or the Islanders. But it's just hilarious. It's just funny. And he's a good character. Everybody was great. Everybody was top notch. I think Robert Armstrong probably put on the performance of his career in this movie. I really like, and I'll be honest, I like John Driscoll. I liked him so much better. I forgot the actor's name that played him. Can't even think of it now. Bruce Cabot. Bruce Cabot. I liked him way more than I did Adrian Brody in Peter Jackson's Kong as the same character.
Oh, yeah.
Cabot was great. He played that very pro-macho man of the 30s because this movie was very much a 1930s film. Very much. The dialogue, the lingo, the characterizations of everything. Because she even makes a point, when he's he's got that cheesy one line with her. It's like, you know, do you feel anything for me? You know, and she's like, but you hate women. You know, it's like because he lives at sea all his life. You know, I mean, that was very the macho man thing back then. But he still had his you know his moments of humbling himself with her. But it was such a great film. I mean, the island was phenomenal. The pacing of this movie was great. But to me, probably the best thing. And I've said this so many times. I've had people ask me, you know, usually gets brought up in like people talking about Titanic, which I despise, and everyone knows I despise that movie. It's my most hated film of all time. They're like, what do you like for a love movie? You know, what's the great right here? King Kong is the greatest love film of all time because it's the story of the Beauty and the Beast, and it's solidified right there at the end when Kong falls and the police captain walks up to Carl and says, "Well, the airplane's got him." And Carl's like, no, it wasn't the airplanes. It was Beauty that killed the Beast. I'm like, boom, dude, right there. I mean, because
last statement and then the
end, man. I mean, it's phenomenal to me. This because you look at Kong, and they did this very different in the 2005. And when we get to that one, we'll get to that one because Anne for this whole film is terrified of Kong. Where in the 2005 Peter Jackson one, they really changed that, and she saw and respected, and then even did fall in love with Kong in the 2005 remake. This one she wasn't. She was absolutely terrified. But Kong is still he's an animal. You know, I mean, they didn't know much about gorillas back then, but he's so innocent. But yet he's painted as the monster. But everything he does is to protect her because he loves her. You know, I mean, you assume, you know, these islanders have been sacrificing these girls to Kong for years. Well, they're dead somewhere because they ain't, you know, they never came back. So either he ate them or threw him around too much. I don't know, but he protected Anne from start to finish. So, I mean, this really was, this was his love story. And then for the thing that he loved ends up being the thing that ultimately kills him. To me, that's the greatest love story. I mean, you can harken that and everything, but you look back at, I mean, the greatest love story or the greatest love anything to me is Jesus. I mean, you look at Jesus, and I'm not relating Kong to Jesus, but I mean, look at, you know, the thing he loves the most, us, is ultimately what killed him and put him on the cross. So you look back and look at Kong. I just got deep on the King Kong here. You know, y'all, sorry guys, but I mean, so it's that type of love that Kong had. You know, the thing he loved most ultimately killed him, and you know, and so to me, it's the greatest love story ever put on film, as far as, you know, a fictional character. And so it's really hard not to find something not to like about this film. So, I mean, there you go. Those are the things I liked about it. I could probably go on for another 30 minutes. So somebody take
wow, that was pretty crazy. But you're right, and I agree. And I think to top all the what you were just talking about, then you're looking at RKO Pictures, you know, life or death situation. Yeah, we got to make it here or we're done. It's in the Depression. I mean, everything's kind of set against this film, but they knock it out of the ballpark. I mean, they just do a phenomenal job, and you're right. The acting's great. Special effects is great. Everything is spot on, and it gets the job done, and then survives a production company. And I'm not yet. I give it a 4, and I don't need to say any more on what you just said right there. I agree with everything you were just talking about. That was just fantastic.
I'm telling you, I mean, it's one of my favorite films. I mean, I could hark on this movie for a whole hour episode. Ruben, what about you? What are some things that stick out that you really like?
Man, there's everything about this film was great. I liked the story was great. The special effects was great. The acting was great. And of course, but I love the acting done. You know, I love old movies, whether it's science fiction, you know, or anything. I just think the acting was so phenomenal back then that it just blows me away. I could sit there and watch old movies forever. So I really pay attention to the acting, and it was great.
I'm with you there. I love that.
Yeah, and I'm more of a you know, the 30s, 40s, and the 30s and 40s women, the beautiful. I mean, they're just beautiful. If you ask me, I can sit there and just I get mesmerized watching the acting. This movie just it's perfect. It's just about perfect. I cannot think of anything. When the negatives are going to come along, it's going to be. It was very rough for me to come up with anything I didn't like about it. And it might be maybe because when I watch the scenes, like I saw the scenes where he's fighting the T-Rex or the Stegosaurus or that reptile Manda-looking creature. I look at it
in the cave.
Think, what did they do? What did they do to make it look so good? I see all this going on, so I'm looking at the technicalities of it all. I'm like, man, this is 1933, and they're making it look so good. They make it look so well, and everything that they went into it, all the technicality, without all the shortcuts that you have nowadays for the movies. So you don't have anything. You don't have a computer there to save you. You don't have CGI. You don't have any of that stuff. I mean, that Kong head had to be made by hand. There's no CGI there.
Yeah. Or when the feet come out.
And they had to make it all work. And somehow they did. I mean, that, like you were talking about that scene on the Empire State Building. Imagine the amount of man hours that went into that stuff. To make it look just the stop motion alone.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're looking at.
I mean, just crazy. I'm like, man,
the movie had a 7-week shoot schedule, so this was shot in 7 weeks. And if you just stop and just contemplate the work that goes into stop motion, I mean, it is frame by frame by frame.
Yeah.
I mean, so to make a movement of an arm going from a side to above your head, you're looking at hundreds of frames of shots.
Well, and then if you go to the Empire State Building, when he falls, he don't just fall off; he bounces off the building like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, they go into really detail on what was going on.
So to me, that's admirable. I admire that film. As it's groundbreaking. It set the table for so many other movies. That we can go on and on about the influences and how many people were influenced. Just imagine all these special effects people that sat there and they saw Kong and they said, "That's what I want to do for a living. I want to be a special effects artist, or I want to do this." Or
Well, I mean, you got two of the
go on and on.
Yeah, you got two of the greatest. I mean, Ray Harryhausen and Eiji Tsuburaya. I mean, sat there,
exactly.
watched Kong. Was like,
and if you
do.
follow that tree, I mean, you're just like, wow, So I have nothing but admiration for this film. When we get to the stomps, I'll talk about why I gave it what I gave it, and we'll go to it's a perfect film.
Do you want to go ahead and run into what things you didn't like, if any?
Well, the only thing I didn't like is I just thought that voyage was just a little bit too long from New York to Skull Island. Just a little. And that's the only thing I can think of that I don't like. But the thing is, it was long, but it was necessary to set up that whole story. Because if you remember in the movie, he doesn't tell anybody where he's going. He goes, "Here's a map. I'll let you know when we get close."
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't tell them we're going to Skull Island, that this is what we're going to do. He doesn't tell them anything other than I'm making a movie and we're going here. And the captain says, "Hey, I've never been there." He goes, "Don't worry about it. When we get there, I'll let you know." And, so I'm saying it's a little long, but it's hard to criticize that because I can't think of a scene that it wasn't needed at that, during that voyage. I mean, you set up Fay Ray and Driscoll falling in love. You have the reveal that they're going to Skull Island. You find out where they're going. And you have the relationship between Fay Ray and really the whole crew. Because like you were saying, it was a 1930s macho. Oh, there shouldn't be a woman on this voyage. But during the voyage, she kind of wins them all over. And of course, John Driscoll, she wins them over real good.
Yeah.
So even though it was long, that's the only criticism I really have. Because even the soundtrack was great. The score was great. That's the only thing. And, maybe I mean, there was plenty of action. Kong fighting. It was, I was satisfied with it. So I can't even complain about that. That's usually a complaint with other monster movies, but not really with this one. I thought it was all right. That's it. Now, I will say that, yes, it's the ultimate love story between Kong and Anne, but the movie never really touches on it. It alludes to it, and you make that inference.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because it was a 1933, but it doesn't really comes out and say, like, when he says that it was beauty to kill the beast, he says it, but there's nothing, she feared him the whole time. He was in love with her, I would say, and it is a love story, but I think it's all inferred. It's never, they don't delve deep enough into it.
They just
The
reporters.
Yeah, and it could be, and it could be because I saw all three, I've seen every version of this film. So it could be that I'm expecting to see that because I saw it in 1976 and I saw it in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the only thing I can think of that I didn't like. I mean, this is a solid movie and I don't think anyone would argue the fact that it should be in anybody's watch list. If you're going to watch a monster movie, you got Godzilla, you got King Kong, that's where you start, or giant monster movies, I should say.
Right.
If you're talking monster movies, I mean, you got Godzilla, King Kong, and Frankenstein. You got, if you're just talking about monsters alone, those are the three. There's so many good ones, but that's all I found that was negative, and it really, I ended up talking positive about that.
Yeah,
it was a negative.
It's so hard to find anything negative.
Yeah. So it was tough. So that's what I got.
There's not a whole lot of negative from start to finish. I mean, you can get into, when I'm 6 or 8 years old, it's just an ultimate movie. When I'm 58 years old and I'm looking at society today, I'm thinking kind of dogged women in his thing. And if, they didn't know enough back then to know that a brontosaurus is a herbivore and not a carnivore, so it's not going to be eating people. But 33, maybe they don't know that.
They definitely didn't.
And people in the seats don't know that. That's a big dinosaur. He's going to eat. It's that kind of thing. So, I mean, no negatives. I mean, it's just stuff that different times in generations and how people talked, how people reacted, and I think that's the biggest thing that I see on it.
And even back then, for the machoism, that it still was. They still weren't disrespectful to her.
No.
In any way. I mean, not really.
Well, I think
I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, I watched the movie and I'm like, maybe I know the time, so that's how it was.
And I don't think
it's
not as much they disrespected her as in the beginning of the film. They're talking they're talking about needing a woman, and then everybody wants to complain about a woman being on the ship.
Right.
That's true. He does bring that up. I see what you're saying. That's what they need. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because it's just it's how you look at it with the times. I mean, back then that was just.
Well, you got to that's how it starts. You got a talent agent. Hey, is this the boat? With the movie, and then he goes up in there, and that's the whole reason why he's going. Yeah, to tell him is like there ain't no woman coming. You can't find one.
Yeah.
So I mean, just that little situation there, that little scene is probably the negative that I'm talking about, not so much of.
I see what you're saying.
How Anne's character.
It was more.
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense.
Yeah.
I never. I skimmed right over that. I didn't even catch that until you started talking about it. I'm like, but I watched so many old movies that's the norm.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And people need to realize and lighten up, saying, "Hey, look, that was the norm back then. It's not like you're trying to put today's standards. You can't go back in time. What's done is done. Yeah,
70
exactly.
years
Like,
ago.
oh, there's plenty of examples of that where nowadays they would say, oh, well, that's unacceptable. Well, back then it was,
Yeah.
and it doesn't necessarily make it bad because it wasn't bad at the time.
No,
But-
no, it wasn't.
Yeah, I
That's
still
the way
love
it
the
is,
movie.
yeah.
I think the movie was
Oh, yeah.
great.
Oh,
Everything
yeah.
was great about
Yeah.
it. And so,
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's one thing that I have a problem with, I guess, what I hear. I hear people wanting to criticize older movies on today's standards, and you can't do that.
No,
It's just,
yeah.
Exactly.
you just cannot do that. It's unfair.
Yeah. And
It's
people that do
unfair to
that
the
should
movie.
never be film critics.
exactly.
Ever.
Exactly, because you're not. Yeah, there's no way. I mean, the even the chief was played by. He was played by a white actor.
Yeah, they
They-
he was
They
blackface.
blackfaced him.
Yep.
Oh my God, blackface. I'm like, come on. I actually watched that crowd scene when they were dancing, and I thought it was entertaining because I said, I'm going to watch all those actors. Because they're all got paid.
Yeah.
They all had jobs.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, and they were great. I was like, man, look at them. They're dancing and they're into it. So, I thought it was great. I said, instead of focusing on that, they should focus on, hey, these people all were working during the Depression.
Well, and I don't
so-
think, that when you sit down and watch King Kong 1933 version, unless you're going to go on a show, a podcast, and tell everything you like and everything you don't like. But if you just sit down and watch the movie, you're going to enjoy it from start to finish.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
And those
There's-
kind of things shouldn't enter into it.
yeah.
That's
It's impossible not to enjoy this.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
impossible
Oh,
not
yeah.
to enjoy
That's the
film.
critic side of us trying to dig
Oh,
deep
yeah.
into
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've got to watch this movie.
Yeah.
I've got to find something negative in here
I mean,
to look.
and it was
Yeah.
for me. That was extremely hard to do. Like at first, my first thing, I'm like, well, okay, what can I find negative? And I mean, I struggled. My first initial thought was like, well, the spider pit scene wasn't there. The lost spider pit scene,
Right.
which they recreated for the special. Well, they did in the 2005 remake, but Peter Jackson restored it like he created one. Did you guys ever watch that when he did an actual black and
No.
white? Oh, it was great. It was a bonus feature for the Kong 3-disc DVD in 2005, and he took the original film, that scene with the log scene. So you got the original Kong film, and he spliced in between. They recreated the lost spider pit scene and put it together as a bonus feature, and it was awesome. So super
No,
cool.
I did not see. That'd be good to see.
So yeah, I mean, I was like, oh man, so the lost spider pit scene, which for those who don't know what I'm talking about, when Kong, they're running across, they're running from Kong, and they're on that log over that canyon, and he's just turning it, knocking the sailors down the pit. In the movie, you just see their bodies fall and bounce off the rocks, which was pretty brutal for back, for any time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they actually, some of them survived in the original cut, and they were then attacked by like a giant spider and a scorpion and a lizard. Like there was this whole pit scene down there where they're just eaten alive by these nasty bugs that are down there at the bottom of this canyon. So I was like, oh man, that's the negative. Well, that can't really be a negative because it was never actually completed and put in the film. So I can't consider that as a negative. So it was really hard.
From what I understand, they had one screening with it in it, but even that's been called into question.
Oh yeah, I mean
whether or not they ever made it. Yeah,
because I mean the footage for it's lost forever. They have a couple stills, but the actual film of it's just lost. It's been lost for a long time. So even trying to that's how nitpicky I got to where like I mean I can't. The only thing I think of is like it's not even a negative thing really, but if anything got on my nerves in this film, it's the amount of screaming. Like there are so many screams in this movie.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it seems
I
like
agree.
every other line Anna's screaming or somebody's screaming. I feel like I'm watching The Thing from Another World with the 1952 film that inspired The Thing. Where they're always closing doors. Like every scene they're closing door. Every scene someone's screaming in this movie, So I was thinking about it last night. I was like, man, there's a lot of screaming in this movie. But even then, the screams are necessary for where they're at. So
Exactly.
it's not really a negative, but I was like, I was trying that hard to find something negative. I was like, lots of screams, that's about as best as I could come up with.
And it's funny you should mention that because I was watching it the other day, and my wife comes out of the bedroom and says, "There sure is a lot of screaming going on over here."
Yeah, see, like it is.
Yeah.
It's the audible thing from another world. It's door slams, screams in this
Yeah.
movie is what it is.
Yeah.
We'll have to get to that one. We'll do that one time, one
Yeah.
episode, Thing from Another World, which was such a
Yeah.
good movie and inspired John Carpenter's The Thing, which we've talked about. But man, just go through and watch it. You can, 20 minutes of the film's door closing. That's all it is. So, but if this one, it's so hard. I mean, you really got to dig, and even digging, I couldn't really come up with anything negative about the film at all for this one. So what did we get for stomps? So we came up with a total of
4.5.
4.5 out of 5.
Out of 5.
Kong, I got your back, man. I was the only one to give you 5 strong because you deserve 5 strong on this one. But I gave it a 5 because to me it is it's just flawless. I mean, you don't even really have to take into consideration 1933, in my opinion. You just take the facts of the film, how good the film is, how great the acting is, the special effects, what it did, grossed money wise, what it inspired, the first soundtrack, the first sound effects, just everything. The movie's just absolutely amazing. It is as flawless as a film that I can think of. For any genre, really. Because there are movies I would give 5 out of 5, but this is, as far as monster movies, this is going to be one of those few, man, where it's going to get 5 out of 5 because it is about as flawless as it can absolutely be.
I think it sets the bar really, really high.
Oh yeah,
and especially for Kong movies, and
they've never hit it.
I don't know that they ever made it back to that bar. So
Kong Skull Island was a lot of fun.
Yes,
but it was also drastically different than what we'd seen. Because
that would be, that's like, when we talk about Godzilla films, we separate 54.
Yeah.
And this King Kong is the same way. You got to separate this from the rest of the films, even though there were remakes. Yeah, you have to separate this. This was the original, and it was a flawless film. And you can talk all you want about the rest of the Kong movies, American made or Japanese for that matter. But this one is in the same category as Godzilla 54. As far as you have to kind of separate it out.
Yeah, I agree with
that. Okay, there's this one, and now let's talk about the rest of them and rank those.
Right.
Because this one's untouchable. Yeah, because this one's untouchable. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so
why did you guys give it a 4 then, Ruben? Why did you give it a 4?
The only reason I gave it a 4 is because I gave Godzilla 54 a 5. So, to be fair,
I can see how you did. Yeah.
I gave it a 4. Yeah, that's the only reason. If I could separate it, now talking about it, discussing it, if I can separate it out from Godzilla 54, but that's too much nitpicking. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to give it a 4.
4 out of 5.
Because Godzilla 54 sits as number 1 for me. That's my bar. And even though 33 set a lot of high bars and inspired Godzilla in a way, 54 is still my first love.
That's true.
So that's what I'm thinking.
Both phenomenal films, but there are aesthetically, emotionally, and somewhat, spiritually for the people at the time. There was
exactly
just what was set by Godzilla. Kong just could not capture. It was blockbuster film versus this is a metaphor film. So because of that, I can totally agree with you, Ruben. Totally agree with you on that one.
Yeah. That's the only reason. Other than that, if Godzilla 54 didn't exist, this would get 5 stomps. Let's just put it that way.
And I could have easily went with a 5. But I think, the things that I have to nitpick and I have to look at and the things I talked about as far as negative, those things, that's the only thing that brings it down. But to me, I think, awesome movie altogether and did set the bar real high for future King Kong movies that,
oh man,
we've yet to hit it.
Yeah. Future King Kong films and future films in general.
Yes.
I think was really sick.
Oh yeah.
For this one.
Because this even with and I might have my dates mixed up. This setup. Okay, this creature, you got like a woman, and you get this creature who's basically in love with him. How many other creature films have we watched where that happened? I mean, you
Oh
got,
my gosh.
you know, I mean,
Dozens.
you know, I'm pretty sure that you could go Creature from the Black Lagoon. You know, that's one too, you know.
Creature from the Black
and you
Lagoon,
could go
Disney's Beauty and the Beast. I mean, you know, there's
yeah. I mean, it all started with Kong.
Yep.
You know, to me, it all started with Kong. Like I said, hey, we can make this work. You know, and I think that's what it is, because you know, there's so many of those movies out there that it's, you know, it's a creature, it's hideous or whatever.
you know, even Frankenstein.
It's just misunderstood.
You go to,
Even
you go to Bride of Frankenstein. You know, I mean, you just see that completely. And for Kong too, I just thought about this. I mean, Kong probably has. I mean, I'd have to look and verify, but just off the top of my head, I can't think of any other movie character that has had more ripoff films than Kong. You know, just off the top of my head, I mean, you got 1933's Kong, but then you've got, you know, the British film Konga. You've got 2 Japanese films, including Kong from Edo. You've got the Korean ape film. You've got, I mean, there's dozens of Kong ripoff movies. You know, I mean, ultimately, Mighty Joe Young, even though it's different, it's a Kong ripoff. You know,
it's a Kong, absolutely
a good ripoff, but
very good.
It's a very good ripoff. But you're right. It's just that. You knew when you see a movie like that, I already know where they got their storyline from. You know, the framework anyway. It was from King Kong. You know, and there's just you're right. There's so many movies out there. Like when we started talking about that, I said, man, there's so many. You know, Creature from the Black Lagoon is one of my favorite Universal pictures.
Oh man,
one of my favorite. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
You know what's funny though is you know, with talking about these type of movies and Kong, you know, I mean, Creature definitely is Kong inspired because of the creature and the woman thing. The soundtrack for Creature from the Black Lagoon is the soundtrack for King Kong vs. Godzilla that they use.
The American version. Yeah,
Kong just keeps trickling on through, man. He just puts his big foot somewhere. But so I mean, so those listening, this of very few movies we've talked about so far since we started this show is a must see and guaranteed going to be phenomenal. There's no way you're not going to like it. Godzilla, the original Gojira, being one of the few, this is definitely right there with it.
Exactly.
I mean, it's you know, if I had a you know top, I'd probably even put this in the top 10 movies you must see before you die list. I mean, Kong would be up there. You know.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely because it's monumental.
I think didn't like Rotten Tomatoes give it like number 3 or number 4?
4. Number 4 greatest films of all time.
Number 4.
Oh, yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You know, I
Great
mean,
movie. You have to see it.
The Library of Congress inducted the film and preserved it because they felt that it was culturally and historically so significant. I mean, Library of Congress, so you're talking the Declaration of Independence, you're talking about Bill of Rights, King Kong. You know what I mean? Like, this is how historically and culturally impactful it is that they're like, it's got to come in, you know? Yeah. So, anything else you guys want to say about this one?
It's a must see. You got to watch it.
Just a reminder that it did get cut up a few times.
It did.
The versions, it did get cut up a few times. And I don't know if there's anything out there. I don't know what cut up version is out there as far as release goes. I'm not sure about the VHS. I'm trying to look that up now to see when it was. Because the VHS was released in 89.
89, if I'm not mistaken. The restoration should have been done. Actually, no. I think the full. Okay, so for those listening who don't know what we're talking about at the moment, when they did the re-releases in the in 38, 42, 46, 52, 56, they end up having stricter decency rules as far as movies, because you got the induction of the Motion Picture Association of America and stuff. So they end up editing things like the ones that were shown on TV and those other ones. I think Janus Films was one of like the art houses that would show these. They end up removing some scenes to tone down the film for decency, so censorship. So you had like the brontosaurus mauling the crewmen. I know was taken out. A lot of the attacks from Kong and the natives, and the people in New York, were just biting them, stepping down on them. Those were removed at one point. The lady in the New York apartment that he mistakes for Anne and she drops her, or he drops her, and she just falls to her death. That was taken out. I want to say there was another one. There's another scene too. I know there's another one. But so for those listening, this movie was edited and censored out, and it wasn't until Universal's that they went like they got most of it back in the 80s. They found a print in like some of the country, and in the 80s
yeah, they found another print. They restored it, 1969. I'm reading here. They found a copy somewhere.
Okay, yeah. So and I think it finally got restored for home video. Yeah,
actually, they found it in Philadelphia.
Was it Philadelphia? I was thinking like UK somewhere.
I thought it was out of the country too, but it says here 1969, a 16 millimeter print, including the censored footage, was found in Philadelphia.
What now? So now, was that released home video, or was that what they ended up doing?
And then and it said here this version was re-released at the art houses that you were talking about, Janus Films, in 1970.
Okay, yes,
and then Universal Studios took that and basically ran with it to use they took the 1942 version that was left. They took the 16 millimeter and restored it. They put it all together again and restored it. That's what it says here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but I don't know why I thought they found it out of the country too, but no, it's just Philadelphia of all places.
Crazy. So I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, if you pick up a copy between home video releases started in the 60s, which I mean even in the 60s you're looking at like 8 millimeter and 16 millimeter, but versus home, you'd have to find some VHS releases to find. I don't know, it'd be cool to find actually one of the edited versions. I'm about to hunt that down now because mine's the fully restored version. But yeah, if you pick it up on a DVD, see it on TV, anything since 2005, 4 or 5, something like that, 2005, because they brought it back out when the new Kong came out. So anything past then is fully restored and it'll have all the original scenes in it. But it would be cool to find an old VHS copy. Yeah, that had that taken out.
It is. A lot of people. Oh, why do you want to? We have this. I have this discussion with people all the time. I've got a set of DVDs of the original Star Wars trilogy that they released them. I haven't seen them anywhere anymore. It comes the original theatrical cut that you saw in 1977, all the way to Jedi. No special edition. This is what George Lucas put out in theaters, and that's the version that's on there.
Oh, dude, upstairs in the Nerd Vault sits a copy of the original Empire Strikes Back VHS release before anything added. Original cover, hold on yards. It's like it's one of the VHS I've kept.
This is on DVD. They released. I forgot when they released them. It was during the Phantom Menace and Clones. They just they would re-release them, and it's so funny because one day I decided to sit and watch them with RJ, and he couldn't believe the difference. So it was entertaining, but there's so many when that happens and you go back and look at either the cut up version or the one that is not fully restored, it's still fun to watch. So that that's why this Kong edited version kind of intrigues me. I almost want to see it just because I want to see what it looks like, and how they edited it.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do too. I'd like to go back and find one of those edited versions would be pretty sweet to see. So
yeah.
Well, all right. Anything else on Kong?
No, I think we're pretty good there.
Awesome. So this month, we've hit, of course, Son of Godzilla. We just did, and then now we're you just heard us do King Kong. Next month we continue on. If my memory serves me right, we're moving to Destroy All Monsters, and we're gonna go straight to 1976's King Kong by Dino De Laurentiis, Jeff Bridges, and of course Rick Baker as Kong himself. That one will actually be a lot of fun. I actually watched that one. I remember as a kid after this original one. And I remember as a kid having a lot of fun with it. And I haven't watched it in a mini moon. like it's been quite a long time since I've watched that one. But
really?
I've got it, but it's been years since I've last watched that one. But I think I'll enjoy it because I'll honestly say I'm a big fan of King Kong Lives, which is probably the worst Kong film aside of Son of Kong. I don't know why. Maybe it's Linda Hamilton. So we'll see what it's like for me for King Kong, because it's been a long time since I've watched the 76 film. So I'm pretty excited about that one. So next month we've got Destroy All Monsters. which is going to be awesome. I'm excited about that one because we've been on a downhill slope of Godzilla films. We have one more bright thing in our future, and then some more downhill slope until things start to change.
I don't know what was going on there with that. It was like down, you hit the valley, and then all of a sudden it looks like, hey, all right, we're getting out of here, and then all of a sudden there's another cliff.
Oh yeah, it's like, well, we're going up. Nope, we're falling back down to our doom. Because what follows Destroy All Monsters is it's the epitome. But that'll be fun. So yeah, join us next month for Destroy All Monsters, and then again because we're doing two films, 1976 King Kong, which is a pretty decent remake. I'm excited about that one. I'm really excited about it because I've watched Destroy All Monsters like a month ago. So I mean, I'll watch it pretty regularly.
All right with it now.
Yeah, I'm all right with it. But I'm pretty excited to see the next Kong because it's been a long time since I've watched that one. So
yeah, that one it's actually I have it and I enjoy it, but I saw that. I remember being so excited about that in the theaters, the 76 version when it came out, because, there was all kinds of marketing for it. I mean, I collect some of this stuff. I have cups. I have, cards. I have, I had I remember having the poster in my room. It was just a
man. The
huge
poster
deal
for that
back
one was awesome. For the 76 one. So.
Yeah.
I just remember.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was awesome.
I remember as a kid. And that's what, probably the last time I watched it, I just remember seeing Baker's eyes in the suit. I'm like, and I go back and, seeing the eyes of Kong in 33, I'm like, they aren't really full of life. And then you look at Baker's, it's like, this creeped me out. Like, I was like, this is weird. So,
yeah.
But, all right, guys. So, yeah, definitely, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this one. King Kong, one of the best films in existence of all time. You've got to check it out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Join us again next month for Destroy All Monsters and 1976's King Kong remake, and of course our main episode that we have every month as well. This is Sludge
and Mark
and Ruben
telling you all to have a good night.
Good night.
All right, good night, everybody.